Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Nicolas Gonzalez, who serves as Assistant Vice President for Strategic Innovation and Special Initiatives at the Manhattan School of Music. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for letting me be here today, and I'm excited to speak with you.
Oh, well, I am so excited. And obviously, the Manhattan School of Music is one of our wonderful partners, creative partners for the show, helped us to co-curate this particular episode. And I would be remiss if I did not also share, I have been truly honored to be able to see your work and your leadership up front and close. You having been part of the Sphinx Lead program and one member of one of our cohorts. And of course, it's just been amazing to see your trajectory in the field and the impact that you're having in the field. So it really is a joy to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. And I just owe so much to the Lead program for having us all gathered together as a cohort. That's been one of the amazing parts of the experience, as well as just getting to meet so many other leaders across the nation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, our program is all about all these people in leadership roles at orchestras and service organizations, academic institutions, et cetera. And so one of the things we want to try and do is kind of peel away at, what is it that people are really doing in their roles? And so I figured I would just start off an assistant vice president for strategic and innovation and special initiatives. What does that person do? So what kind of falls under your purview at Manhattan?
Absolutely. So my position is really to work across the institution. I am working with our human resources department, all of our academic deans, all of our other departments here at the school to really examine and find ways that we can be more equitable. For example, working with our human resources department, it's working on our onboarding session. It's working with our retention to making sure that everyone we hire comes in at the same baseline and has a good experience as well. And in addition to that, it's also artistic. I serve on the artistic planning committee to making sure that we are bringing in the best guest artists that we can for our institution, as well as just kind of making sure that we're looking at all the different lenses in which we bring an artist in, diversity being one of them. So I would say that is a majority of my job, is just making sure we're an equitable and inclusive organization. In addition to this job, I also have the fun item of doing anything that the president wants. So that's where the special projects comes in. And it's been really fun to dream up initiatives with our president, President Gandry, to come up with what might be best for the school, as well as what's aligned with us with our strategic plan.
That is awesome. That is totally awesome. And what I also am kind of getting is this sense of breadth. So as I think about that, I know that there are a number of people in our audience who have different roles where they may have to deal with breadth, or different departments in their institutions, things like that. And so when you're dealing with human resources, but also with, artistic affairs, and of course with the president of the institution, there's this breadth, and I can only imagine sometimes either competing or differing interests. And so I'm curious how you kind of approach that. Are there any kind of skill sets or best practice as you look to see how can you affect your role, affect the change that you're charged with seeing in these kind of disparate areas of the institution? Are there kind of approaches or strategies you use?
Absolutely. So one of the first things I always do is just make sure that we are all approaching our work from a shared understanding and shared language. I think if we have that baseline to start the conversations, it really just helps us as we dive deeper into each of the topics. And there might be times where one person has a differing opinion, but because we have a shared set of understandings and language, we're able to make that space for discourse and still come together and move towards the institution. So I would say that is always the first thing I would do. And the other kind of best practice I always have is just I believe that conversation can help so much. So realizing that there may be things that we want to accomplish, and that might take some time to get to. And as long as we're having conversation along the way and setting appropriate kind of meetings to build towards that, I think is always just very helpful. And just making sure we're to remind ourselves that we're all moving towards the same mission and the same vision for the institution. And it's just us learning how do we incorporate that viewpoint? How do we stretch our own viewpoints? And sometimes that takes time, but through conversation, we're able to get to that big picture that we have.
Totally. And as you look at kind of the landscape, right, especially for academic institutions, but even further abroad across the entire sector, as having this ability to look and work in these different areas, do you see, is there anything that rises to you as, over the next year or several years, I see this as being one of the greatest challenges we're going to have to overcome, or issues that we're going to have to get right, because this is really, a potential challenge or even threat to, the excellence that we want to bring with our work? Is anything rising to that level for you?
Yeah, I would say from a higher education perspective, it's really how do we uh, create a curriculum, and how do we provide all the resources necessary for a student to be successful. I think, departments such as student success are becoming more apparent for our musical institutions. And those types of resources for students, as well as resources to help with mental health, um, varying career opportunities that they may know of or may not yet know of, but will discover during their time here at school. I think the more we can investigate what those are and have the resources ready for our students, I think that is imperative for any higher education institution. And then I would say for the field as a whole, I believe that creating space for empathy and understanding is really going to be a challenge for all of us, and something we have to overcome if we're going to have these conversations around that create discourse and allow us to have so many different opinions but still move towards that vision that we have for another. So I know one thing I've been looking inward and looking externally as well is how do we create more empathy in our field and in our conversations and our spaces for us to have those types of conversations.
Well, I love that, and I hear you. And unfortunately, I think it's not even just the arts field, but the entirety of our society. The
Yes.
empathy piece is so important. And I also love how you raised about how, in one of the ways that you're approaching that, the disparate areas that you work in, the idea of conversations. Because I could totally see how the more conversations you have, potentially, the better foundation you're giving for empathy, for people to have some level of mutual understanding. So which is awesome and wonderful. Is on the kind of special project side, and the ability to work with the president of the Manhattan School of Music, President Gandrews, obviously a wonderful leader. And any kind of key things there that you're really excited about or looking to explore that that you think will really have a substantial impact as you think about those?
Absolutely. I think one of the great things about working with President Gantry is that he makes space for leadership and conversation, and there's always active listening that's kind of happening whenever we're in a space together. And from that meeting space, one of the things that we're working on is really understanding the identity of our students and how they may feel included or a sense of belonging here on campus. And so I would say that's one of the big things that we are really striving for here at MSM, and one of the special projects that we'll be working on, because I think we both can say that we really do believe that knowing the identities of our students help them to become better educators, better performers, better creators in the field, and ultimately helps us have more better global citizens coming out of MSM. And I think that's an incredibly big feat for us to tackle, but also an important one that we're excited because that's just going to create more questions. And the more we can ask questions and learn, it creates more creativity for us.
Absolutely. Well, as you go about all of this phenomenal leadership work, there's got to be tough days. There's got to be days where maybe people aren't being so empathetic or, there's other challenges. And just wondering, as a leader, someone in a leadership role, where do you turn to, or do you have any kind of approaches that you utilize when times are the toughest and, obstacles may seem like they might not be able to be overcome?
Absolutely. So I know for me, music has always been my source of inspiration. And I can say that from the first time I played my tuba at 16 years old, which is pretty late, but um, because music has always been something that I go to for inspiration, whenever I'm stuck or whenever I'm frustrated or need to find inspiration, I always go find some either young students that are performing or go to a work that's happening around where I'm living. And gratefully now I live in New York City, that's ample opportunity. But because music has always just been so core to what I've loved as I've gone through my education, that's what I go to for support. I go to step away from the office, go and see a performance and be re-inspired and remind myself this is why I'm doing this work. Seeing the young students at MSM perform reminds me why I have to do this work, and that helps me push through some of the tough times, as well as reminding myself that there's always going to be work tomorrow. It's okay to pause, take a deep breath, take a step back, and re-enter it with a clear mind.
Nicolas Gonzalez, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for everything you do, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Alexa Smith, my predecessor in this position, who laid a fantastic groundwork for me to just continue the work.
Absolutely awesome.